Most important thing before you caulk is make sure everything's dry. If there's any still residue of what you did with your grouting, it's not going to go very well. So make sure everything's dry. And then with white, you can get the matching caulk. It doesn't really seem to matter too much because a lot of these brands don't even have the exact color and it never really matches anyway. So I just used 100% silicone, just white kitchen and bath. And I find that to be pretty good on white. And then, you know, when the customer ever has to redo this at some point, you know, the caulking is always the part that's maintenance. You know, it should last a good 5 years, don't get me wrong, but it is something that will have to be changed out eventually. So you might as well just go with this pure white silicone. So my biggest tip here is not to cut the tip too far. So be sure to start out small, because you don't want to be applying too much silicone to the corner. And just pay attention to how big your grooves are. I mean, this is probably the biggest section here, maybe a 3/16 inch, 1/8 inch gap. So that's, you know, I would recommend trying to keep your hole about that size as well. You could always cut it back further if you need to, but once you cut it too far, it's kind of a done deal. So another important thing, I know this doesn't look great, but this is a newborn caulking gun, and they really do make a decent gun because it keeps it from, as soon as you let go of this trigger, it stops oozing everything out. It'll ooze out a little tiny bit, but it's not, you know, some of these cheap models, you can get really frustrated and get silicone everywhere. So a good caulking gun makes a difference. But yeah, we're just gonna try to make as continuous of a bead as possible down this corner. The more consistent you are, the better bead you're probably going to have. But don't be too hard on yourself. It's not that problematic if you get too much on the corner. Okay, you just take your Windex and spray that entire joint all the way down. And you could try to use a caulking tool if you want. Most of the time I just find my finger to be the easiest. So just tool that joint. And that Windex will prevent it from smearing on the other side of the joint. Okay, looks pretty good. Again, just make sure that your joint is clear. You know, and you really should make sure that there isn't any grout in that joint either. Actually, I'll just vacuum that out real quick. So same thing, try to be as continuous as possible. I'm going to go ahead and caulk this shelf as well because I'll be spraying everything down with this Windex, and if I get water on the shelf, then I'm going to have a hard time caulking it afterwards. Continue with the corner. Okay, so I just sprayed and did that corner. I'd put a fan on this. Water is your worst enemy in these joints here. So dry it out for a couple of minutes before you go and trying to even caulk it. Because if anything's wet, you're not going to get a good caulk joint. We're done. Okay, so then okay, so right along this edge, the bull nose, we're going to caulk it and then paint it.
So I hope some of those tips helped you out. You know, I know some of you are probably looking for some kind of miracle tool that was going to make this really simple for you. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great caulking tools out there. I'll leave some links in the description below of some of the ones that I recommend trying out. But it really just does come down to experience and kind of getting an intuition on how much pressure and, you know, how to go about smoothing out that joint. But don't be too tough on yourself. It does take some time to get good at this. If you screw up, just clear out the joint, use a little bit of acetone, clean out all of that caulking, let it dry, and start over. But I assure you, you'll be able to do a good job on your own shower. And this is something that is maintenance on a shower. You will end up having to do this time and time again, so you'll have a second shot in a few years to clean it up. But this is part of a 3-day course that I've developed, so I step you through the entire process of taking out a tub and installing this walk-in shower. And I basically streamline this into a comprehensive plan in a 3-day period, because I know a lot of you don't have the time to be able to take weeks and weeks to get something like this done. So check out my course. I think it'll really help you out. It'll definitely give you a bunch of tips that you might not have been thinking about, and making sure that you're planning ahead for that bathroom renovation. So thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.